Hello everybody and welcome back to Tier 2 Talk, the Australia Championship. Keane McKenna, your host here once again for another week. Whether you are listening to this at 6 p.m. on the Wednesday, whether you're listening to this in the morning, on your way to work, in the car while you're driving, walking the dog, wherever you may be listening to. Thank you for listening to Tier 2 Talk. I always appreciate any listens we get, and this episode is going to be another big one, as we have been doing it for the last few weeks now for the Australia Championship as it gets closer and closer to December 6th, which is less than a fortnight away as we get close to crowning our inaugural Australian Championship winner. What's on the cards for today's episode? Well, we have another special guest interview. It is our 12th club that is featuring on the podcast over the course of the year. We have finally got them on. We're finally joined by Marconi Stallions. We're joined by centre-back Anton Mlinaric. He's joining us a little bit later. And of course, we had to get Marconi on this week's podcast after their memorial Derby d'Italia win on Friday night on penalty shootout. So we had to get Marconi on here, and Anton, who has been exceptional at the back for the Stallions, he joins us after their big win. We'll talk about that win, their defensive records over the championship, which has been flawless outside that one lone game down in the South Coast, his journey as a footballer to get to this point of his career, and their huge semi-final against Moreton City Excelsior. That's going to be coming up just about the halfway point of this episode, so stick around for that. We'll also go through a full wrap-up of the quarterfinal actions, which saw loads and loads of drama as the Australia Championship has been filled with since its inception on October 10th. Plus, we'll go through the semi-final matchups, the keys you need to look out for in that game, and my thoughts on what is the most important factors when deciding who's going to win those semi-final games. So, massive episode, like I always do at the start of episode. If you have liked Tier 2, whether this is your first time listening, whether this is your 41st time listening, whether it's your 10th time, however many times you've listened to Tier 2 Talk, if you do like this content, please leave 5-star review on Spotify, follow on Spotify, and if you want more day-to-day content, we just post our form guide going into this weekend semi-final that can be found on Instagram and Twitter. You can find a lot more content we post on there daily to keep you guys updated with the Australia Championship on Instagram at T2Talk_TAC. So if you don't mind, please help support this channel. We are continuing to grow, and we're getting close to 500 followers on Instagram. We just hit 300 on Twitter, and we hit 100 on Spotify just a few weeks back. So on all platforms, we are growing, and I appreciate this so much, and I'm hoping to end the year just as strong as we've been doing throughout the entire season. So, to get into it, there's not too much news to talk about this week, but I do want to talk about the new football video support system that was debuted in the Australia Championship on Friday night and across the following 3 games. VFS, you might have seen it if you're watching the games. It's a modified version of VAR. In a statement they released last Wednesday. So the reason why I didn't talk about this last week is because I recorded the episode Tuesday night, and then this news came out the Wednesday. So it was too late to talk about it last week, so I thought it'd be the first thing I bring up this week. So in a statement they released, and where's the quote I want to look for? Here, it's a streamlined alternate to traditional VAR system created for leagues that operate without extensive broadcast infrastructure. The system provides targeted video assistance in the biggest match-deciding moments without the complexity or constant intervention of full VAR. And that's what myself, and I'm sure a lot of you guys listening, saw over the weekend. VAR have had its issues since its inception a few years back now. It's been a while since VAR has been involved now. But the one thing that's always been involved, and I went to the Wanderers match on Saturday night and VAR was involved there, is that the main concern is that it's always behind a screen. There's no one there physically making the decisions. It's someone in the backroom staff that may not be even at the stadium, just watching on screens and calling the ref over whenever he wants. He doesn't have to tell anybody or stop play whenever the VAR decides. And I'm sure that's caused a lot of frustration for myself and a lot of other fans watching these games. If VAR just steps in when you're like, what is going on? There's no explanation. And it's really, there's no black or white. It's very grey. So this new VFS system has kind of taken what VAR done with the whole reviewing thing, but it puts it back in the hands of the coaches. The coaches have to give cards over. They get 2 challenges a game to force a review of a moment, of a scenario, or whatever. And I think that worked really well. The only live footage I saw of it was at the Apia Marconi game. And in those moments, it did really help because immediately when there was a big decision, the coaches, instead of screaming at the fourth official, they would get the cards and give it to the fourth official to determine a review. It's not them screaming at the fourth official and the fourth official going, well, VAR's having a look. Oh, VAR said this. It's the coaches going, we want you to have a look at this. And then from that look, they get told what they saw. And I think it worked really well. It allowed fans to see what was going on. They saw the coach give the card, cause the review over, stop play, let the referee not so much be told what is happening from someone upstairs, but more so just have another look at his decision. So it's not so much second refereeing, and I think the head of referees, John Moss, said that it's not so much about re-refereeing the situations, but it's using the camera angles that there's not a lot of that VAR could help in this situation, but there's enough camera angles where you could get a better look or a different angle to a situation that the referee might not have seen. So I think for the Australia Championship, I think this system is the best way going forward. I don't think it needs full-on VAR, but it does help having that little bit of technology because it does give that step up from the NPL games. The NPL doesn't have that review system, and I think not so much needed, but if you want to make the Australia Championship seem a better quality step up in terms of production, then having some sort of video assistance is an easy way to go about it because NPL, they probably will never have a video review system because of finance and grounds and whatnot. But if you want this to be a national competition run by the FA has used their leverage to talk to FIFA to get VFS into the championship. And I think it worked well in the first coming weeks. And I was talking to someone over the weekend. It allows for this championship, this tournament, which has been really good for Australian football, not to be decided or talked about based on one lone refereeing error. How many games has there been where you walk away from that game and the referee's at the center of the game rather than the action, whether the goals or the excitement, but the referee's lone decision? By having a video assistant in the situation, not in the whole game, but in these key areas, then it limits the ability of referees affecting the outcome of this game, and it saves the talk more about the football and the quality on the field rather than the controversy off the field with it. So that's my thought on VFS. Bit of a rant there, but I was important to talk about it, and I think it worked pretty well in its first weekend. We'll see more of it this coming weekend in the semi-finals, and then, of course, in the final in just over a week's time. Now, to get into our quarterfinal review, we start with the Derby d'Italia on Friday night. You saw me there on Instagram and Twitter if you followed along with our match day coverage. And boy, what a game. It was a dramatic and fantastic way to kick off the quarterfinals. It was a very defensive Derby d'Italia, with neither team forming any real chances in the opening hour of the game. Though it was the substitutes of Marconi, Mate Busic, who was the man for the Stallions, who was able to break the deadlock in the 71st minute, firing home his close-range effort past Oliver Kalic in net for West Apia. Marconi from there used and relied on their defensive prowesses to keep West Apia out, and they did so for the large majority of this game and what was a very tired and injured West Apia side. Though after a penalty shot was denied for Marconi in the 94th minute after Brendan Kelly won the ball back on that tackle. Marconi fans will disagree with that, but that was the judgment of the referee after a VFS review. In the 99th minute, 16-year-old Oscar Gonzalez, who made his debut last week against Bayswater City, scored in that one. He was on the score sheet once again and was the hero for West Apia, heading the ball past James Hilton and sending this Derby d'Italia into extra time. An extra half hour was needed to separate this Derby d'Italia. There was more penalty shouts denied, 3 red cards, 1 to Franco Meyer, who won't be playing this weekend's semi-final, and 2 to assistant coaches from either side. And it was just a frenzy of 30 minutes. The first 15 minutes went by in a flash. By the time you settled down from the goal, was talking to people, was setting things up, like for Instagram and Twitter. The first half was over, and I was like, what has happened? And then the second 15, not too much happened. It was very tired. I think both teams were just kind of settling back down and obviously getting ready for penalties in the back of their mind. After 120 minutes, 1-1 on the score sheet, it was the penalty spot from 12 yards out that would decide which of these Italian clubs would go into the semi-final. Apia did miss their first kick where Marconi scored their first two, giving them the early advantage. But then two straight misses from Marconi gave Apia the chance to draw level, and it saw the shootout tied 3-3 after 5 kicks, sending it into sudden death kicks. 4 successful kicks in a row from both sides. That meant Oliver Kalic was next up for West Apia, the goalkeeper of West Apia. He stepped up, and his effort was denied by his counterpart, James Hilton, who made his third save of the shootout. Hilton then took the ball off Kalic, put it on the spot, and fired home the winning goal for the Stallions, sending them into the Final Four. It was a perfect script for the start of the quarterfinals and a fitting affair for a Derby d'Italia back on the national stage in the Australia Championship. Over 4,000 in attendance, penalties, red cards, stoppage time goals, dramas, and so much more. This game had it all. And I don't think there was anyone that was involved in Australian football that couldn't watch that game and not look at how fun that was, the prosperity of the Australia Championship, and what this could potentially hold for in the future. Marconi, I do think they were the strongest sides of the two, but neither did look at their best. The Stallions' defense, again, was strong and ultimately was the difference. I think they held out really well. I really thought West Apia wasn't going to get that chance in the 90th minute. I thought they wasted their chances. Usually in the stoppage time, you get about 2 chances, and I thought both those chances had already gone, but Gonzalez made the difference there, sending the game into extra time and penalties, but ultimately the Stallions won it back, and they are through to semi-finals. For West Apia, unfortunately, I think they just lost too many players in the end. By the end of 120 minutes, Apia's 5 best attackers were all on the bench due to injury. Jordan Segreta and Jack Stewart were ruled out and were in boots and crutches before this game even started. Prezil Tees came off after being kicked in the Achilles. Dominic Costanzo also came off. He looked like he'd tighten up in the hamstring, and it looked like Franco Farinella, who scored a double against Bayswater, he also came off in what was possibly a groin injury there. So I think it was always going to be tough with that many attacking players out against a very good defensive side. Now, fair play to Parisi. He brought on the 16-year-old, gave him the chance, and the 16-year-old provided a lifeline. But I think in the end, it was just too much for West Apia. And the injuries just kept piling up and piling up. And now we can hear from Marconi's hero from Friday night, James Hilton. We caught up with him after the game, so we'll cut to that interview. Plus, after that interview, we caught up with the head coach of Marconi Stallions, Peter Sekenis, as well, so we can hear his thoughts after his side fought tooth and nails to secure their spot in the semi-finals. So James first, and then followed by Peter Sekenis. James, a dramatic finish here to cap off a fantastic Derby d'Italia. You lost in the 90th minute. Was it all despair? Did you think it was all over? Did you have belief your side could come back in that end?
Yeah, no, I think our performance in extra time showed what our mentality was. As soon as that goal got in, we knew we still had a job to do. So the boys rolled up their sleeves and worked really hard. So full credit to all the boys who pulled through, and those who stepped up and took pens. It's not a nice experience, and we just did enough in the end. So yeah, great mentality shown from the lads. Full credit to them.
It's the second time you've won penalties. You won it in the NPL New South Wales Final Series. You win it here again. You've saved multiple goals once again. How is it important that you make these saves in these crucial moments for your team?
Yeah, the lads, they work their ass off every single minute of the game, and I'm just sort of chilling in goal, making saves. So when it comes an opportunity for me to get my back and help the lads, it's something I don't want to let go. In saying that, when the pens do go in and I know the lads have to step up and score to keep us in, and I feel so guilty. I feel so terrible for them. So they've done enough to sort of get us to the point where we were able to get over the line. So we're buzzing in the end.
And, this time you were the one that were able to step up, decide this quarterfinal, score that winning kick. How did that feel to have that moment in front of your fans that were traveling here as well?
Yeah, I think the celebrations speak for it. So, yeah. It just means it was incredible. I've never scored a goal before, so I sort of so I just lost my head a little bit, and the fans have been absolutely incredible for us all year, through the high moments, through the low moments. They travelled away to Wollongong last week and up in Leichhardt today. So that's almost a 3-hour difference. So they're traveling all around the country to support us boys. And, you know, when we can give them moments like that, that's what it's all about.
Peter, a fantastic win here. What's your thoughts after that crazy quarterfinal game?
It's definitely good for the, the supporters and the viewers. Bit nerve-wracking on the side. But yeah, look, it's a good advert for the competition. Two good teams, two rivals going at each other. You know, we started a bit slow. They started off stronger. I thought we started to steamroll towards the end. There was drama, penalty shouts, red cards, you name it. That's what we do it for. And I'm just, fortunate enough they've got a group of players that have got a big heart and they got over the line when it counted.
To talk about the first 90 minutes, it was a very defensive game. Not many chances either side. You guys got ahead there. Super subs as well. Yeah. What was the thoughts in the substitution process there, and how pleased were you that they paid off?
Yeah, look, us coaches, we go with a gut. We call shots. It's a gamble sometimes. You don't know how it's going to pan out, but when it pans out, we look good as coaches. When it doesn't, we should get sacked. But yeah, look, I knew these boys. We need a little bit more. We need boys to be fresh. We've played a lot of games, so I thought it was time to bring on the sharp boys against some of the bigger boys Apia had and turn them around, and it paid dividends. And probably unlucky they scored an equaliser in added time.
To talk about that added time goal, was it a thought of despair, thought you lost it, or was it a matter of trying to pick the boys back up after a grueling game and then get them going again for extra time?
No, it was all about reset. Yeah. You can't dwell on what just happened because that gives them the momentum. So the boys, restarted, and even, when we came in for the penalties, I can see it. They were ready to go. So, and we have a fantastic goalkeeper, which makes a difference.
To comment about your side, you had the 5-0 loss against Wollongong last week. You played 120 minutes against the New South Wales champions. Just how proud of your team to step up and deliver on such a high occasion.
It just goes to show that people who wanna rule us out after one result and disregard what we've done up until that point was a little bit of kick in the gut for the boys, and they wanted to come out today and prove everyone wrong, and all the critics that they've got a little bit more homework to do in football.
And to talk about penalties, it's your second penalties you've won in the last 2 months. You beat Sydney United on penalties as well. How important is it to have James Hilton in goals and saving those key moments there?
Goalkeeper's key in penalty shootouts, and he's delivered again. Hopefully we don't need him. We win games before we get to that point. But, while we have him, we're full of confidence.
Final 2 questions. Your fans, your travelling support here, those scenes at the end there, fantastic scene for Marconi Stallions. What's that mean to have so many fans travelling here tonight?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and, last week they were heartbroken with a 5-0 result, and we needed to redeem ourselves. We knew we could, and that was, for them and everyone who doubted us, and make them proud and something to happy about.
Yeah. And now you move on to semi-finals, you reset, you go again, whether you're here, whether you're in Melbourne, you just set the same and face whoever comes your way?
Yeah, look, we'll now get the boys to recover. We'll watch some football on TV, some good games, and once we know where we're playing, we can organise ourselves. But at the moment, it's all about let's celebrate this win, get the bodies rested, see where we're at, and go from there.
The biggest upset of the quarterfinals came at Avengers Park on the Saturday at 12:35 as the Queensland Premiers upsetted the Victorian Premiers at their own ground. It was another tight contest which saw little chances in the first 45 minutes, but the deciding factor of this contest was when Avondale's defender Brandon Lundy received a straight red card just 7 minutes into the second half in a last-man tackle. From there, Moreton smelt blood and they took their chances. 3 goals in 8 minutes saw the Queenslanders fly past the Avengers and put the semi-final all beyond doubt their semi-final spot all beyond doubt after 67 minutes. Kojima started the scoring before Morai bragged a brace for Excelsior. The 10-man Avengers would get a consolation goal through Lucas Holgan 10 minutes from time, though it's arguably the biggest win in Moreton City Excelsior's young club history, now through to semi-final where they will fancy their chances against anyone now, being one of the best attacks over the last 3 weeks. Avondale, on the other hand, they end their campaign unable to reach the heights of their NPL season where they were crowned premiers of Victoria. They did do enough to get to this stage, but never looked convincing or never looked like the team they were under Zoran Markovsky. They did have a new head coach in Jonathan Germano, and without their top goal scorer as well, Maningwek, who left as well in the offseason, it was always going to be a different look Avengers side. They did bring in Bruno Fornaroli, but just never quite clicked on the national stage. But they'll be looking to rebuild in the offseason and go once again as a foundation club. They'll be back in the tournament next season. The other game on Saturday was Heidelberg United and Metro Stars, and Heidelberg returned to winning ways in emphatic fashion, putting 6 past Metro in a comfortable win at Olympic Park. Metro were full of confidence and little fear travelling to Victoria for the first time this campaign, and they showed that by opening the scoring just a minute and 40 seconds in. Thomas Visas shifted the ball inside from his left and nestled a sharp finish into the bottom right corner, giving the away side the lead. Though Heidelberg would not only draw level but take the lead off the South Australian Premiers just 5 minutes later. Jay McGowan, Bull Juach, and Marcus Humbert would give Heidelberg a 3-1 lead before halftime. Juach and Humbert would get on the score sheet once again in the second half before Anthony Lesiotis would complete the rout 5 minutes from time. It was a valiant effort from Metro, who exceeded expectations making it this far into the tournament, especially after at the halfway point where they were sitting third and looked a long way off Bayswater and West Apia trying to get out of the group. Heidelberg showing that they are a different beast to this South Australian side. After 3 straight draws, Heidelberg did return back to winning ways, and it's their second 6-1 win of the championship. A crazy fact there, but it just shows how much firepower is in this Heidelberg side. The final quarter-final match saw South Melbourne progress to the semi-finals after a 2-0 win over NWS Spirit at Lakeside Stadium. South Melbourne made the most of their trademark long throw-in strategy, one that's been seen right throughout their NPL season going back all the way to February, and opened the scoring in the 34th minute. Max Mickler hurled the ball towards the far post from the right where Oliver Laval nodded in the opening goal. Spirit did ramp up their attack in the second half, but unable to find the back of the net before the Hellers doubled their lead, which ultimately was enough for the home side to book their semi-final spot. Mickler picked up the ball on the right side and drifted it into the box before rolling an effort into the goal off the near post. My thoughts were South were very comfortable throughout this 90 minutes and never looked like they were going to falter and give away their spot in the semi-final. Spirit were unable to beat the Melburnian side, a feat that no New South Wales side has been able to do this tournament. They gave South a good fight, but never truly looked like they were going to cause any harm to South Melbourne. So that is our quarterfinal review. As you can see, there was so much drama, so many different actions and different games all across the weekend as we go from 4 games down to 2. We'll talk about these semi-final matchups, what they mean, what the keys are, and the history behind these matchups right after our interview with Anton Mlinaric from Marconi Stallions. We'll cut to that now, so we hope you enjoy that one. Anton, thank you for joining the episode, and how are you doing today?
Beautiful. Thanks for having me. Doing well. Just come back from work. So, good to be on with you.
Yeah, that like we were talking about the dualities of semi-pro life that some people might forget.
Yeah.
So to start off with, we have to talk about that Derby d'Italia win Friday night. Penalties, drama, 4,000 at Leichhardt Oval against your biggest club. How was that win? How sweet was that victory?
Yeah, it was definitely up there, especially in a Marconi jersey. We versed Apia many times in a knockout sort of setting. And I'm pretty sure every time we've versed them in that knockout style game, we've lost.
Yeah.
So a couple of Oz Cup games, semi-final this year. So it was good to sort of get not revenge, but like, all right, we've got one over them.
Yeah.
But it was a good game, tough game. And we needed it. It's a do or die game. It's us or them. And we knew that, and we just kept chipping away. And sometimes I felt like it was getting away from us, or it wasn't going to be our day. But proud of everyone involved, players, coaches, everyone that came on, penalty shooters, all that sort of stuff. Everyone did very well that night.
Yeah. Now we were talking. You came off at halftime and extra time.
Yeah.
Weren't on during that penalty shootouts on the sideline. Were you nervous being on the sideline? Were you relieved you didn't have to take a kick? Were you confident in your teammates out there that could take care of business? What was the feeling on that side? Or was it everything involved?
Yeah, like physically, I don't think I could have taken a penalty.
Yeah.
I would have been right at the end. I was like, no, I'm not going to take a penalty. I would have had to take one anyway. But no, of course I would have taken one if I was on. But it was definitely nerve-wracking there. You think, all right, Jimmy saved, I think, one or two early on.
Yeah.
He saved the first one.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, we're on. And then we missed one, so we went back like that. And then it was pretty much sudden death. Like, they were scoring, and we just had to keep answering with a goal. And it's like, all right, the pressure was on. But everyone did well. Like, Noah Anderson, he came on during the game, and he was unbelievable. And he stepped up to take a penalty. Um, Vela played like 5-10 minutes, slotted a penalty, so you can sort of count on everyone in our team, and everyone wants to make a difference and add to the team, which is what we've sort of got at Marconi. Everyone's whether you play, not play, star, we've got that good culture where we just want to win for us as a group, and we're a team, and I think it showed on Friday night.
Yeah. And I asked your coach Peter this on Friday, but after the loss to Wollongong, you weren't involved in that matchday squad, but in terms of preparations for this Apia game, after that 5-0 loss against Wollongong, you then came to Apia, fought 120 minutes, fought penalties, and got through. How sweet and how satisfying, and how does that show the toughness of this squad to get to the semi-finals?
Yeah, of course. That Wollongong game we believe it was a one-off. And the team sort of moved around a bit. Players got minutes and players were on yellow, so it was tough. I should never have got to that. But we knew we could bounce back. We came back Monday. We sort of said, all right, this is what happened. Let's not work on it, but just think about that in the coming games, especially against Apia, because if that was happening against Apia would have done the same thing. So the preparation was the same, back to normal. And just full focus on Apia. You can't dwell on the past. It's happened. We've had losses like that before. But the preparation was the same. And we knew Apia were a very good team, especially on the ball. They like to keep the ball and they're quick going forward. So we knew their threats, and we just worried about, all right, how can we bounce back? A lot of people saying a lot of things about us, how we're the underdogs, and we got no chance and we shouldn't be there. So it was nice to sort of show people too that no, like, that was a one-off. We can beat anyone and everyone in this championship. So yeah, it was nice to get that win.
Yeah. Now, like you said, that was a one-off. If you look at the rest of your Australian Championship kind of resume, you are guys one of the best defensive abilities and best defensive teams in the tournament. You play centre back, obviously, for Marconi. You have 3 clean sheets, 2 of them at home. What has been the key to your solid defenses and getting wins in these tight scenarios where a single goal could be the decision in most of these games?
Yeah, we've been defensively very strong. It starts from the front, to be honest. Everyone's bought into how we defend from the front, with Damien and Marco, and the way we press and our aggressiveness and our willingness to win the ball and win rules, because once you start losing the drills and 50-50s and second balls, then it just makes it so much harder for you as a team. So we do that really well, I find, and just like that desire, like if it goes past me, someone's there to help me and back me up, or if one of the front guys misses, like everyone's just backing each other up, and we just believe that we can beat anyone, and that's it. We've conceded not many chances besides that Wollongong game too, so we sort of got that, how can I say, that game plan where we roll up, we know our roles, and we just stick to it, and that's it.
Yeah. And now to look at your career over the years, you represented Australia in the 2019 Under-17s World Cup. You've played for Brisbane Roar and Sydney FC in the A-League, had a spell at Oakley Cannons years back, and now this is your second season with the Stallions. whole idea of the Australia Championship was formed to help bridge this gap between the A-League and the NPLs. Having played at both competitions and both levels now for a couple of seasons, do you feel this championship is the right step for you, for your career, for these next few years in development? And do you feel it's the right move for young players trying to make that jump from semi-pro to pro to professional like yourself?
Yeah. You're talking about the Oz Championship, bridging that gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you play NPL, and NPL sort of gets, it's not stale, but you're versing the same sort of that state sort of setup where you want to verse the best of the best, national, play at the highest level. And for some players, including myself, like this is it at the moment, and you get to verse the best of the best semi-professional teams. And you've seen Heidelberg in their Oz Cup run, where they beat Newcastle,
Wanderers,
Melbourne.
Auckland.
I don't even know. They won 3, didn't concede a goal. So you can see just based off that the gap isn't that big. It's just, to be honest, from experience, it's that full-time sort of environment, training every day, being with each other every day, being sharp, being a bit more fit as well. So it's professional. It's their job, and like we talked about before this interview, it's boys are working. They got other stuff on. They got to travel all the way here. It's that. So I think that's the biggest difference. But definitely, this Oz Championship shows how good the standard of football can be, and I think everyone's enjoying that.
Yeah. Speaking about, having new opponents in this championship and facing tougher and better oppositions, you do face a new opponent in this weekend semi-final in Moreton City Excelsior, Queensland Premiers. We've talked about how strong defensively Marconi has been throughout this championship. Moreton, on the other hand, they bring a very strong attack, 9 goals in their last 3 games. In your preparation so far throughout this week, what you know about Moreton City, what have you noticed about the Queensland side's attack, and what's your plan on limiting their chances this Saturday?
Yeah, Moreton City, they've done extremely well. You can say sort of an underdog in the whole sort of thing. No one's expected them to be where they are. But I watched them against Avondale on the weekend, and they're quick. They want to get stuck in as well, similar to us. They got a young team, boys that want to fight, and they go forward very quickly. And to beat Avondale, especially at Avondale, just shows really how good they are. And to be honest, everyone knows how good they are since the start of the championship. So it'll be a good battle. We're excited to verse. We know their threats and what they're good at and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think they're a very good team, and we'll show on Saturday why we think we're better.
Yeah. Again, speaking on Saturday, it's worked out. These neutral sites have worked in your favor. You are playing at the Palace on Saturday, 12:30. After seeing the sites at Leichhardt Oval last weekend with your fans traveling to Leichhardt Oval, getting over 4,000 there on Friday night, how excited are you for your fans to turn up at home like they do throughout the NPL, like they have throughout the Oz Championship, and help you guys get over the line there on Saturday?
Yeah, playing at the Palace is, for us, it's the best. Our Marconi fans are there. We know the pitch and everything. So playing at the Palace is the best, and it's worked out that we get to play there, and it's hopefully they get behind us to kick on and hopefully make this final. Yeah, we're very lucky and fortunate to be in that position. But yeah, we're excited to play.
And final question, what will it mean for Marconi, the squad, yourselves and the fans, if you're able to win on Saturday and book your spot in the inaugural championship final and play either a South Melbourne or a Heidelberg, which the club of Marconi has so much history with, either one of those clubs if you face them in the final?
Yeah, it's history. We've talked about it many times before this started and during that. It's an inaugural competition. We want to be the first ones to win it. That's everyone's goal. But we truly believe it. So yeah, it'll Marconi being the first to win this Oz Championship would be the best thing. The club will wants it to happen. We want it to happen. And it would mean nothing more. We won a final last year, and I think this sort of steps over that in terms of how big this competition is. It's a bigger competition, and it's a new one, so we want to win it, and hopefully we can.
Well, Anton, thank you very much for joining us this week. We wish you all the best for this Saturday against Moreton City, and hopefully be in the final next weekend.
Thank you.
It is semi-finals time in the Australia Championship, and we have 4 teams remaining in the hunt to be the inaugural champions of the Australia Championship. The first thing I want to talk about these semi-finals is the news that came out on Monday when they announced the times and the locations of this game. Now, I talked about, the curiosity I had about the neutral sites of the semi-finals and the finals and how they were going to do this before the championship started. This was back in, I think, late September, early October, that I was asking this question about how they were going to do this, whether it's like a ball pulled out of a cup and they said this team's going to be the home team, how they were going to do it. We learned some information through our sources about how they were going to do it, how the FA were going to determine these games, blah, blah, blah. But it was always said it was going to be a neutral site. Now, I want to start by saying I think the grounds they picked are the best for these games. Now, they picked Lakeside for the Melbourne game, and they picked Marconi Stadium for the first semi-final. The only problem I have is that they did say it was going to be a neutral site. If they never said it was going to be a neutral site and that these games would just be determined off what is the best available, no problem whatsoever. It makes sense. Marconi, they have the biggest stadium. It's their own stadium. And arguably the bigger club over Moreton, so they would host. Lakeside, it's been used for the Doherty Cup final, MPL Grand Finals, the opening game of the championship. It's the best stadium that's been used throughout this year, and it's a no-brainer. It was even the Australia Cup final location as well. So it's always been at the heart this season. So it obviously makes the best decision. But when that's South Melbourne's home ground, when it's Marconi's home ground, it begs the question why they ever said it was going to be neutral, whether they thought these teams weren't going to get this far, or they had other plans and they reverted back to these ones. I'd just like to know some more information about that. I don't know who could provide that, but that's my only thing. If they never said it was a neutral site, then you go, okay, Marconi, Lakeside, obvious choices. Let's go. But I just want to know why the shift away from a neutral site game to now Marconi Stadium and Lakeside Stadium, and then it begs the question if depending on who gets through now, if South Melbourne make it through versus Marconi, say, who hosts there? Where's the neutral site going to be there? Is it just going to be put at Lakeside? Is it going to be put at Marconi Stadium? Is it going to be, say, at Amy Park in Melbourne? Is it going to be Jubilee Stadium in Sydney? Do they go back to the neutral sites for the grand final, or do they just put it at a Lakeside Stadium or a Marconi Stadium and just go, that's the best venue we have, the best one for availability? So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that one. So keep an eye on that. That's my only thing I have to say about that. But we'll get into the semi-final previews now. And I must say, the first thing I want to say is, so I did my pre-Australia Championship predictions at the start of October. So the week before the first game, South Melbourne Sydney Olympic, I did a full projection of who I thought was going to make it and win the whole thing. Now, West Apia has thrown that out of the water. I tipped them to win the whole thing, so they've screwed me over in that department. But the one thing I must say I'm proud of myself is out of the 4 semi-finalists, I got 3 out of 4 clubs correct. And I think picking Moreton City as the team most people not would have done. So I'm happy that they've done that. Marconi have filled the hole that West Apia does fill. I tipped it would be South Melbourne, Heidelberg on the other side. But looking like a fantastic weekend of semi-final actions that will get underway now. The other beauty I want to bring up of the championship is, the stories that have been unfolded. There's a lot of history in these clubs, but there's also a lot of new history that people may not have known. And I've learned a lot throughout this championship about clubs that have been around for 60, 70 odd years and clubs that have been around for 2 years. And the beauty of these semi-finals is we have, in the first semi-final, is a matchup we've never seen before. The first time these two clubs are meeting each other. And the other semi-final has 61 years of history already already built into this contest. So I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, it's really fascinating that, yes, they're all brand new to this Australia Championship logo and brand and competition, but there's already so much history with these clubs and there's so much new history that's going to be written. So on that note, we will head to Marconi Stadium for the first game of the semi-final weekend. Marconi Stallions versus Moreton City Excelsior, Saturday, 29th of November, 12:35 p.m. kickoff. Now, I know a lot of people have given a lot of slack about that one being a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday. I do agree. Now, I think the obvious reason is that it's SBS. They want this game to be on SBS. They want the most eyes to be on this game. And SBS time slots at 1 and 3. So obviously this is what they've worked into this. So I don't mind it for that sake. You know, going to games and getting people at the games, it obviously would have worked if you had one game on the Friday night, one game at 3:30 on the Saturday for butts in seats. But in terms of viewer audience at home, this does make the most sense. So give and take, and I'm sure come next year in the Australia Championship, there'll be possibly more wiggle room with TV broadcast and time slots as well, but we'll see what that means. So, Marconi, Moreton City, a huge New South Wales versus Queensland battle, one that no matter what sport you're playing in is always heated and always wanting to be the bigger team and the victors in this game. Both these sides do have one loss in their last 5 matchup. Marconi, that 5-0 defeat to Wollongong Wolves. Moreton City Excelsior, a 2-0 defeat to South Melbourne back in round 3. But I think the key, and if you look at our form guide as well on Instagram or Twitter, is that the key here is going to be Marconi's defense versus Moreton City's attack. Marconi, we talked to Anton about this outside the Wollongong game. They've been one of the best defenses in the tournament. 3 clean sheets so far out of 7 games. And 2 of them have come at home. One against South Hobart, one against Wollongong Wolves. So at home, they are really solid. They have a very good backup. We saw James Hilton in net last week. He was the hero there. But with Anton there, Taz Mordakouris as well, Lockie Griffiths, there's a lot of solid defense there for the Stallions. And I think that will be a real key for them. On the flip side, though, Moreton City have been one of the best attacking team as of late. 9 goals in 3 games. And those 3 games were against Sydney Olympic away, South Melbourne at home, and Avondale away. So they're not just doing this at home, but they're doing it most importantly away from home. So they fancy their chances coming down to the Palace on Saturday. They won't fear the Stallions, and they know that with their attack, and even without Joe Scott last week, they put 3 past the Victorian Premiers. So they will fancy their chances, and I think this is the key for the game. I think the winner of this one will be determined by which these 2 sides are able to flex their strengths, so Marconi in their defense or Moreton in their attack, and stronghold the other team's best ability. If Marconi are able to really show their strength over Moreton City, Morai, Kojima, they're not big, solid attackers. They will cut you apart 1-2 passes. That 3rd goal of against Avondale showed that clearly, that they'll toy with you, they'll pass you till you're silly, and then strike. So they do have that, but if Marconi are able to muscle them and out-muscle them, then I think they could go a long way and possibly make the final of the Australia Championship. My tip for this game is, although I didn't tip Marconi to get out of the group stages, I did tip Moreton City to fall to an Italian New South Wales-based club in the semi-final, and I do think that is going to be the case here. I do think Marconi at home, not having to travel, their defense has been really good. I think they can, like I said, out-muscle the Moreton City attack. I do think they'll have enough to get through this one. I don't think it's going to be a thrashing. I think it's going to be 1 or 2 goals in it. It might become a slugfest as well. Marconi have scored 4 at their highest this season, so it might be a 4-3 as well. I doubt that. I do think Moreton City will give them a very good fight in this one. They won't go down easy. They want to be the only premiers to qualify for the final here. They're the last premiers standing in this tournament. They want to represent Queensland well. They've made it this far. Why not go one further? They will have nothing to lose here. but I think Marconi Stallions, with the history, their ability to win these big games, I think will be the key difference here. The other semi-final is a blockbuster at Lakeside at 3:35, also on Saturday. So back-to-back games in these semi-finals. We'll know who is playing in the final on December 6th, come 6 o'clock on Saturday evening. We had an Italian derby last week between Marconi and Apia in Sydney. We now have a Greek derby down in Melbourne, South Melbourne, Heidelberg, and a historic matchup, not only in-state, but on the national stage. Bit of history about these matchups. 61 years have gone by since the first meeting of South Melbourne Hellas versus Alexander met on the 30th of March 1964. Their last matchup on the national stage was January 5th, 1997 in what was Heidelberg's last season in the NSL. It was South Melbourne Lakers beating Collingwood Warriors 4-0 at Lakeside Stadium. So they've seen loads of changes, from names to identities, to mergers with AFL clubs, to championships, to 4-time NSL champions South Melbourne, 1-time NSL champions Heidelberg. There's so much history already under the water between these two clubs. So much is unfolded between these sides, but with national glory on offer once again, South Melbourne chasing their 5th, Heidelberg chasing their 2nd. All of this history that I'm talking about right now will be just that, as they look to do battle again on Saturday. They've met 3 times already this season, with each side winning once and 1 draw as well. But the biggest result this year comes when these two faced off in the Doherty Cup final, the State Cup final in Victoria back in August, where then a struggling Hellas side that were fighting for relegation and were in the relegation zone for a few weeks there. They weren't doing very well at that point in time, upset it and beat the league leaders, Heidelberg, 2-1 to take silverware. So that's the biggest meeting so far, and South Melbourne have that edge over Heidelberg already. Since then, South Melbourne climbed out of the relegation zone, finished 9th, and Heidelberg went on a historic run which saw them go to the Australia Cup final. They lost there. They did win the NPL Victoria Championship though, so they did end up getting silverware, but against South Melbourne, there's no silverware on the line this Saturday, but there'll be so much pride and urge to win at Lakeside. Both undefeated in the championship, and my key in this game lies in the defense of both sides. The age-old saying is that defense is win you championship, and this is the case here. The best 2 defenses over the last 5 games, Heidelberg have conceded 7, South Melbourne conceding 4 goals. They both have very strong defenses, but what will be put to the test is their attacking power. You have Manny Aguek, Oliver Labau on one side for the Hellas. You have Bull Jouach and Anthony Lesiotis on the other side for Heidelberg. Both these sides have enough firing power to cause disruptions for both these defenses, and it'll just be a matter of which defense can keep the other side out and which attack can shine under the lights at Lakeside Stadium. I think it is a very, very tight game to call this one at Lakeside. I am going to give this to South. One of the few reasons I'm going to give it to South is I tipped them obviously at the start to make the semi-final, to make the grand final. I tipped this semi-final. I tipped South Melbourne and Heidelberg back in October to make the semi-finals. They did do just that, and I did tip South to go through, so I'm going to stick with that tip. The reason I picked them back then is I think Heidelberg were always going to run out of steam at some point. They haven't yet. Maybe against South Melbourne, their steam may just run out. South Melbourne at Lakeside, everybody will be down, but also Heidelberg fans will travel as well. They've got 9,000 at the NPL Victoria final just at the end of August, so we could see possibly the biggest crowd we've seen in the Australia Championship this Saturday at 3:30 at Lakeside Stadium. So if you're in Melbourne, make sure you get down to that game. But it's going to be very close to call, and I think whoever does win this game between South and Heidelberg will be the favourite going into next week's final on December 6th. So that will wrap up our semi-final preview. You can always let me know who you think is going to win these games when they go up on Instagram on Saturday. I always do the polls, as always, so you can check out those. I won't be at the Marconi Stallions and Moreton City games, so you won't see any game day coverage this weekend. You can check out those games on SBS for all their coverage there. They'll do the coverage much better than what I can. So make sure you're watching those games. I'll be watching those games on SBS as well. So lots of action to be decided And no matter where that final is next week, whether it's up in Sydney, whether it's down in Melbourne, you best believe I will be there for that one. The final bit of news we do, and we always end the episodes like this, it's our power rankings. And with only 4 teams remaining, the power ranking get very, very easy to do. Still at top, I still kept South Melbourne atop of the ladder, even though Heidelberg had a 6-1 win over Metro Stars. So it's South 1, Heidelberg 2, Marconi climb up 5. After being 8th last week, they now climb up into the top 3 for the first time this season. They're sitting in 3rd, ahead of other semi-finalists, Mawson City Excelsior, who are up 2 spots into 4th. West Apia, they dropped down 1 into 5th. Avondale dropped 3 down to 6th. NW Spirit stay at 7th after their 2-0 loss against South Melbourne. And Metro Stars round out the top 8 after falling 3 spots after their 6-1 defeat against Heidelberg there. It was a much shorter episode for you guys this week, with not as many games, and the games just counting down now until we have one next week. These episodes, not so much getting shorter, but just less to talk about. We have 16 games to cover in the group stages the week before and the week prior. Now we just had 4 games last week and only 2 this week. So we're still getting the same amount of coverage and detail, just not as many games to go through. Thank you again to Anton for joining us. Again, our 12th club of the Australia Championship that has joined the podcast. So that's a really big achievement for us here. I'm really proud and happy that I was able to share this many stories with you up to this point. Next week, obviously, we'll try and get both the sides that make the final on the show to preview that. A huge grand final preview next week, so expect that one. That one will be just as long as what you've come to know over the last few weeks with these hour-long episodes. This one, just back to our normal, about 45, 50-minute mark, so just under the hour there, which I always try and do. Again, if you like this episode, please remember 5-star review on Spotify. We're trying to build that back up. Follow on Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the stuff you guys have been doing, and I appreciate all the support. Like I said, I'm just blown away how much this has grown from me just talking about football to now you guys listening and getting involved and telling me what you guys think, and I love just that. We'll get some fan interaction next week on the podcast, so stay tuned for that announcement. But until then, make sure you're watching these semi-final games. You saw last week the quarterfinals brought drama. The semi-finals will do just that, as the championship has done since October 10th. And with the grand final looming just 1 week away now, we need to decide who will be in that first ever grand final. So Keane McKenna from Tier 2 Talk signing out. And until next week, I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.